thalidomide thing. That came very close to being a big tragedy. And by being somewhat super cautious, they avoided the full extent of the phocomelia tragedy of the thalidomide. And I think that has stayed as being a lesson learned, and it is, after all, from the very fundamental, their fundamental point of view, it is only money. And if it costs many more dollars to be additionally sure, the public safety value is worth it. So I don't think there's a nasty, cynical thing going on. I think it's just super cautious and very conservative. And I think that's a fair status. Yes?
I may remember about a year ago, here by a hospital, there was a big all-day conference on MDA.
That's in Oakland at the...
Oakland, yeah.
Yes.
And at that conference, there was... MDMA. I'm sorry. And at that conference, they sent I think the good cop from the DEA was there.
His name is Frank Zappienza.
Right.
Psychologist, chemist. Yes.
And in a private conversation, he said, and I was standing there, he's telling somebody, we don't really care what you do up in your houses in the hills very quietly. The minute whatever you do hits the streets, we are going to come after it. And I was wondering, does that sound like a fair statement?
It's a fair statement. I think that's fair. I would phrase it slightly differently. I believe they definitely don't care what you do in your house, unless there's some reason that they are reason to be offended by its getting there or what you do outside of the house afterwards. I think their interest is not so much as selling in the streets. I don't think the emphasis is the street. I think the emphasis is selling. I think when the money is attached and there's a transfer of money, there is a transfer of that aspect of power. And the more money that is involved, the more of a crime it is. So I think you can titrate their involvement and their attention by the size of the transaction that's going on. And if something is being given away and is obviously not to kindergarten children who are going to be hurt by it, I think they will generally stay out of it because they have many other things to do. So I think in a general sense his phrase is accurate, except I would exchange street with money.
So what does that tell us about maybe the next 30 or 40 years? Have you looked in the future to see, we've had a great last 30 years, but it's all kind of turning to slush at the moment. Do you see the other way out of the tunnel as you look forward?
I'm not quite sure how the question is directly seen.
You see that, have you got any private vision of what we need to do to carry on without it getting out of control, as some people might say it is today?
Stay under 3%? What? Stay under 3%? Do not try to revolutionize the world. I think you are going to be controlled if you are. You try. It's just that 3% argument. Just quietly stay at home. Don't scare the horses. And frighten the horses, I think, is a phrase. Yes, but no, I'm cautiously optimistic. Yes.
Do you have anything for increasing intelligence and et cetera, acuity, that sort of thing?
Not that I would be at all comfortable with saying have that property.
Yeah.
I think we all are functioning very thoroughly within, fully with 3 or 4% of the capacity we have. Why does it stand? Yes.
An answer to yours, by the way. On increasing intelligence, there's about 5 substances of increasing intelligence in case of certain kinds of retardation that don't do anything to those of us who are not retarded. Okay, the questions I had. You said MMDA, which was myrstacine, was what?
That comes from nutmeg. That is 3-methoxy-4,5-methylene dioxyamphetamine.
3-methoxy-4,5-methylene dioxyamphetamine.
There are a total of 6 isomers of that, of which 5 have been made and 3 of which have been proven to be active.
6 isomers, 5 active. And what's apiol?
Apiol is an essential oil that comes from the apiol plant, which is related to the dill plant. It is a 2,5-dimethoxy-3,4-methendoxyphenyl allylbenzene. It's a phenylpropene. It's an allyl.
Okay, it's a phenylpropene.
Yes.
It's not.
Has no nitrogen in it.
Okay, and how about the one from parsley and saffrol?
Saffrol is methylene dioxy-allylbenzene. Isosaffrol is the propanol counterpart, and it is a chemical precursor of MDA. And parsley is largely L-amycin, which is a precursor of TMA.
Okay.
How about memory?
Considering the marvelous array of exotic molecules you've had circulating in your bloodstream, have you noticed any negative effects?
We haven't.
I've turned gray prematurely. But that's about all I can. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yes.
You were talking about private vision earlier, or I believe Victor brought us the question of private vision. I was intrigued by that model of the fourth column oscillating circuit.
Oh, that's strictly a manic illustration. But
it reminded me of Charles Muse's idea. I mean, you talked about oscillating values that may have might have died out, or and he talks about vestigial properties residing perhaps in some structure of the brain that hasn't been identified or pinpointed yet, and that's another way of looking at it. You're not looking for compounds that might activate unknown, still larval circuits?
Oh, I have no idea what's being activated.
Isn't that a possibility?
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. Oh, no, all explanations are valid because none are established. Yeah, no, I'm not presumptive enough to say that you're looking for things that do a certain task. You're looking for something that allows you to evaluate what can be done. Much more general than looking for a specific target. Yes?
I'd like you to go into some little details. How do you evaluate a brand new compound from its beginnings on up to publication?
Okay, the method of evaluation is fall into a fairly standard pattern. First, you must have adequate assurance of reproducibility of what you've made. Namely, from the chemical point of view, you should know what you have, or know that you can do it again, so that you're not working with a one-of-a-kind situation. Purity is not as important as people may believe, because you are not with any reason to think that which you are making is the active material. If you have reason to believe there's safety and sufficient justification for experimentation, all you need to do is have a reproducible sample of something. And of course, the simplest way is to have a pure compound. One always has to start. There is an argument of preliminary animal testing that is almost the ethic of the pharmaceutical industry. I find no justification in it because the amount of material I'm working with is so small that I cannot conceive of its being lethally toxic. At least I have not been surprised that way so far. And so that is not an immediate concern. I do not see reasons for testing them in animals because the animal testing is largely for toxicity. I can predict, and I have run enough animal tests to feel fairly comfortable prediction that all phenethylamines will kill mice at about 100 to 150 milligrams per kilo. All amphetamines will kill rats somewhere between 5 and 10 milligrams per kilo, regardless of what the amphetamine is. That group generally is that toxic to a rat, or that toxic to a mouse. I see no reason for wasting compound or wasting mice. And so I do not go through any animal testing. I try first on myself, and I try at an amount that I feel confident will not be active. This sometimes takes some soul searching, because one does not know what is an adequately small amount. And you always take half of it. But if you think about, if you have a limited amount of material, it takes only twice the smallest possible dosage, to go to an infinitely small dosage and come up by factors of 2. Because all you need is one additional minimum dosage, and you can take that and divide it by 2, by 2, by 2, by 2, and never run out of material. So in essence, you can start at any low level at not at any cost of material, but only at cost of time. And time is a factor. I will not take two new materials within 2 or 3 days of one another, and I will very rarely take the same material sequentially. I just keep a pattern of randomness going. I usually have 6 or 8 or 10 compounds going continuously. And I always, at minuscule levels that have no activity, so my normal day's behavior is, from here I'm going to the SF hospital on Monday on BART, and as a rule I do not, I will have something going along with me on BART, and with no activity. And once in a while, you're surprised. You end up at the 24th Street station seeing things you're not used to seeing in the 24th Street. I mean, these things can occur, but they are not often there because almost all of your experiments, I would say 95% of your experiments, are at levels that produce no effect whatsoever. When you get at the first suggestive level, I have a series of gradings. I call them a plus scale, in which I have minus for no effect, and you're rarely wrong. I have a plus-minus for a threshold effect, and you're frequently wrong. This is where you've been reminded that something's gone on. You've taken what is today, what is that little funny feeling? Gee, oh yeah, this is 3 milligrams of transformation. I've forgotten about that, you know. You're reminded. So this becomes a plus-minus. Very frequently a false positive. Very often, 3 days later, you go up by, say, 60%. You go from 3 milligrams to 5. No effect. Becomes a minus. You throw that out as a false positive. Plus-minus, the next level is called a plus level. It is a level, by the way, none of these levels depend on what the effect is that's shown. It depends only on your acceding to whatever that effect is. You can screen LSD or strychnine and have exactly the same plus scale. The end result of LSD may be a psychedelic experience. The end result of strychnine may be clonic and tonic convulsions. But that does not keep the evaluation of the potency of the drug any different. So, plus level is not only are you pretty convinced that it's not a false positive, but you get the first smell of chronology. It was there. I just noticed it at about half an hour. I didn't see any further change in an hour. I knew at 3 hours it was completely gone. This is a plus level. 1 plus 1. The plus 2 level is where you are not only not going to be convinced it could be a false positive, but you'll have the chronology, and as well you'll be getting the first qualitative nature of what its activity is. It started at half an hour. It got to its full effect at 1 hour. It's going to have some visual component. It began dropping at the 3rd hour. 6th hour is pretty much out. 9th hour, completely clean. That's a plus 2. A plus 3 level is a full effect of the thing. You do not wish to answer a phone, and you're certainly not going to drive the car down to the local store. So you are into a situation, whether you are pre-convulsive with strychnine or whether you are seeing things move on the wall with LSD, it doesn't matter. That plus 3 is that degree of saying this is going to be a day devoted to evaluating a new drug. And that is that level. Then you get sophisticated plus 2.5, plus 1.5. You feel it's not quite this, not quite that level. It gives you something that goes on the other axis. So you can say this weight is related to that degree of drug effect. That then gives you the beginning of a dose-response curve against which then I can begin working with another person. I work then usually exclusively with Ann, who will then follow me at a full effective or nearly effective dosage and get the input of one more person. Then begin titrating. Was I unusually sensitive? Was she unusually sensitive? We begin working out an agreement about what the quality is and what the quantity is for a plus 2 to plus 3 effect. With that, it goes into the research group that I have worked with for a number of years, in which a total of about 15 people, all of whom are thoroughly experienced with drugs of a whole wide variety of psychotropic action, and it's a mixture of disciplines, which I wouldn't even begin to enumerate, from physicians to lawyers to dishwashers, a very intimate group, a group that has known each other for that period of time, have experienced psychotropic drugs with sufficient frequency and with sufficient intimacy that there are none of these little corners that can come out, that can be awkward contributors to a psychedelic experience or to a psychotropic experience, such as, I wonder if there was a slight relationship between him and her that maybe was brought forth here that might have influenced the effect. There are no secrets. We know each other with an armpit smell intimacy, but no sexual intimacy, if I may make that slight stretch of an analogy. We know each other at a personal level to the degree that if something were to happen to one of us, there's no question of what the others would do, whatever is necessary to support. That is a degree of intimate knowing. That's a degree of friendship that is very enviable. Namely, if something were physically to harm a person, the others would support that person for as long as is necessary. That is a degree of intimacy. That's why the group stays as it has been and will stay that way for probably the rest of our life. But then if we get that number of an N of maybe 10 or 12 or 15 from that group, then I have enough confidence to be able to publish and say this compound has this activity in man at this level, and this has been done now for enough years that I don't have that much difficulty with referees and editors who are uncomfortable with human experimentation in ways that are not totally approved by the FDA. So this is the way I have done my research and the way in which I publish, and that is what is behind the values of the compounds I publish. Okay?